Welcome back to the CADy Shack podcast. This is episode 5. A lot of topics today. We finished up with reInvent and the end of November kicked over the new year. So I think there's a lot of fun topics that we could round out. We covered the 3 C's and a lot of what we talk about with our partnership and kind of mastering the dark arts of partnering with AWS. At reInvent, I had a talk. It was pretty fun. I called it the 5 C's, and I clipped consumption and champions. And I think those 2 C's are important. We can talk about those a little bit, but they also lead into a couple other topics that I think we should bring up. One is, in a previous episode, Brett talked about EDP, and I kind of squashed it and said, hey, that's advanced. Let's get to it later. I think this is a great episode to get into that stuff. And then, new year, new AWS goals, as you think of like your, as you think of your partnership and you get to the point where you have a partner development manager, they're going to start pushing your partner plan for the year. What are your goals? If you look at the APN guide and the ISV accelerate, checklist, co-sell checklist, there's a bunch of things that they want you to do. So I think we could talk about that, and that should round out the episode. So with further ado, we're partners of AWS, but in many ways we're built on AWS. Brett, you're a good example at an ISV also. What is the C for consumption all about? Why does that matter?
Ooh, consumption, right? Yeah, so it's right. It's part of the 5 C's of empowering you and your organization to be successful. Consumption leads into a lot of really unique things, for sure, in my opinion, right? Building just like us, right? Like you said, as an ISV, we're a digitally native business and ISV, so we get a lot of bias, from the AWSers. It's a significant difference, right? It really builds, you got an instant rapport build with a lot of the teams and how they actually measure you as a partner. So, and of course, my AWS guy, my account manager loves us because we're building in the cloud. So it's a great thing that you can leverage too, right? So even just kind of going down that path really quickly with consumption. And if you want to get to the rest of the team and the rest of the accounts as an AWS Alliance guy that's trying to drive pipeline, beat the heck out of your account manager, because you're consuming, you're growing, they're hitting things like EDP, even if I'm not allowed to talk about that yet. And just growing in general. I'm a big fan of it, right? It is part of the things that drive success. And when you see what a lot of the AWSers on the inside, the Amazonians see on the consumption side, it just leads to so many different things, right? It's directly attached to the co-build, the co-market, the co-sell. And if we even talk about the power of the VPC for our clients, and it's an amazing way, and really for security too, for both of us, right? Being in security, I think it actually helps change the narrative, especially for the greenfield sellers. You've got all these customers are out there that are kind of concerned about moving to the scary cloud, right? Well, CrowdStrike, you, me, Deepwatch, I mean, we're all protecting you from the cloud. We're doing security from the cloud, protecting your workloads there. So I think it tells a really good story too. So it's a good part of eating your own dog food, right?
Yep. Yeah. Barlos, any thoughts on consumption? I guess there's really 2 angles of it, but if you've built something on the AWS, you're consuming AWS services. What has been your experience, or how do you talk or coach, other partners about why that's important, or, just what it is?
Well, I brought this up before, but drag is super important, right, to consumption. AWS sales folks, and I just talked to one of the segment leaders the other day, and you were on the call, Michael, and he said that, MBOs are great for a partner to help close, whether you do ISVA or you do MPPO or, your data, AIML database, whatever MBO that you can fill for a partner. AWS does care about a lot about MBOs, but that's usually more on the second half of the year. The beginning part of the year is all about consumption. How much does your product drag in to AWS infrastructure dollars increase? So for an example, the last company I worked for, Yellowbrick, was $1 in AWS, or $1 in Yellowbrick spend equaled out to $1.60 in AWS infrastructure cost, because to stand up the Yellowbrick database inside the customer's VPC, you had to have a certain level of EC2 spend for it to even work. So that $1 to $1.60 is very important to a salesperson in the beginning of the year to, about June, or actually the whole year, but that's all they care about from January to June. And the reason is because sellers have a 50% growth number from day one. So if you start the year off with $19 million book of business from the year before, you have to be at $30 million by the end of the year. That $30 million is only going to be based off of AWS infrastructure, nothing else. It's not going to be based off of marketplace because that only helps their paycheck, not their sales quota. So if you haven't figured out how to do a drag number, reach out to me or Michael or Brett. We can help you out, but it's a very specific thing that has to be done. And if you have the ability, you should do it. So I think consumption is everything.
It's a great call out. You know, when we lean in with the AWS growth I've had historically from like the Alert Logic days, it changes everything, right? Kind of even changes the way they look at you as a partner. And I think that's significant from consuming that way, right? So, you know, one of the things we would mention, and Laceworks associated with that too, that we're going to work with you. And this is part of the the pitch to the AWS seller. I don't want to have bias to us. Is that we're gonna make sure that they turn on CloudTrail, GuardDuty, Security Hub at a minimum, so we can ingest those, get more of an inside look into their environments and east-west traffic and stuff like that. It's a great way to, great for us from a security perspective because I need that visibility, but for the AWS seller, it's not just pushing my product. I'm like, all right, let's go sell some more Deepwatch. No, I'm helping you in a lot of different ways. So I think it's a great way to look at consumption. And like Carlos mentioned, I went through a similar exercise with one of our new CADy Shack partners. And every time that they deployed, they had to have Redshift, Elasticache, Elasticsearch, and EC2 in an S3 bucket just to get their product deployed, which that's phenomenal. It's a great way, like I said, to impact vision and that drawing down against your sales quota in a different way that most people just don't look at it from a partner perspective. So it's a great call out, Wallace.
Yeah. So where I was headed was there's the two buckets to this. So you guys got your product, and in this case, you're right. If you deploy inside the customer's VPC, you're dragging stuff. If you're SaaS, it's your own consumption, right? So we're SaaS, which means all of our infrastructure is on AWS, and we're using a bunch of compute, storage, other managed services. And with that, there's still, when you deploy our product, there's other services that we want you to turn on or we need. CloudTrail was one, S3, right, in security. And so that drag part is what, to use your stuff, what is it consuming at the customer? And I think that's really important to co-sell, and it should frame kind of your co-build strategy in many ways if you evolve your architecture over time. The point that I was making and where I was headed, because we wanted to get into the EDP, is the C for consumption is what I think of ourselves. Many of us are SaaS companies. We're built in a cloud. We're built in AWS. And, I've said this many times, but, coming to Lacework when I was a sub 100 employee, we had 50 customers. I can't control consumption. We built this thing like Field of Dreams, and now we're bringing customers on. I can't control consumption, but you know what? The more customers we have, the more we consume for AWS. And now you've reached hundreds, thousands of customers. Like my partnership with AWS has gotten a lot easier the more money we spend with AWS, but also a partner in the APN who's also built on AWS. Amazon has a term for this. It's called the dual flywheel. And so what you think about is if they're helping me and we're co-selling effectively and we're driving marketplace revenue and I'm doing all the great partner things, they want to feed me more customers because guess what? My bill keeps going up. My consumption keeps going up. And so not only am I a good partner, I'm dragging services at the customer, I'm making AWS sticky and in our case secure so that they build more, they build faster. But on the back end, our bill just kind of goes up. And I'm obviously not allowed to say it, but I've seen our bills many times. We spend more today than we did a month than we did 3 years ago. And that's just naturally, well, when you have more customers, you have more compute, your SaaS infrastructure. And that also, like if you're trying to be a good AWS partner, if you're trying to grow up, it's not like you want this to happen. Optimize your spend, do all the right things, but it does get easier. And as I was hitting into the EDP, Barlos, finish your thought, and then I'll have you describe what is an EDP, what does it stand for? When do people start looking at this? I can tell the story about Lacework because I was pretty instrumental in our first EDP, but yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to bring up one of the customers customers and members, because CADy Shack does have a consulting portion. And one of the customers that we're working with right now is Redacted. And when Redacted first came to us, AWS was asking, like, what is the drag, or what can you do with this drag, since they're a services company? And we at Redacted, I talked to their technology department, and they started dragging in CloudWatch, CloudTrail, Macy, Guard Duty, Security Hub, all of that into their SIM and SOC that they provide to different companies, but also to their penetration testing program. So all of that now, so the goal for them is that for every time you see a opportunity brought in from Redacted into AWS, that it should also drag in 3 to 4 other AWS products along with it. And AWS knows that if you just have a product, yearly, it's going to grow by at least 25%. So even if it's $10,000 today, it's going to be $12,500 tomorrow or next year. And so adding any products, or helping adding any products, as small as they are, to any sale is going to help. To jump into the EDP, the EDP is, after talking to many CEOs and CROs of partners that haven't quite grasped what it is, and EDP stands for an enterprise discount program. Basically, what you're doing is you're guaranteeing a 2 to 3 year certain level of spend with AWS. You start off with what your 6-month trailing spend is today, and then you say that you're going to continue that for the next year, and then the following year it's going to grow by 20%, and the following year after that it's going to grow by 20%. You can either do a 2-year or a 3-year. This will give you somewhat of a discount, or 5 years. You can do a discount with this. It goes from anywhere from 6 to 12%, depending on the level and the negotiation and stuff like that happens. The one fallback for an EDP is that you have to get enterprise support along with it. And enterprise support can be expensive, like $15,000 or 10% of your spend, or something along those lines. And there is a startup program that makes it either $5,000 or 10% of your spend, whichever one is greater. And this sometimes discourages folks, because that eats up all of the savings sometimes that come along with EDP. And then the CEOs that I talk to are like, why would I guarantee money to AWS? It does nothing for me. All I'm doing is saying, yes, I'm going to be there for 3 years. If I don't, I have to pay the money back. And I'm not really getting a discount, because all I'm getting is enterprise support. Here's what I say to that. One, enterprise support is awesome, because you get really great folks helping you to solve your problems, but an EDP is the only way that you're going to buy your marketplace percentage down right away. Your renewals will be 3% right away, and you're going to have more of a lean into AWS. So when your account manager is asking, hey, can I have this credit? Can we do this? Can we think about doing that? They're going to see that you have an EDP, and you're going to be almost like a preferred customer. It's kind of like that checkbox. So yes, you're guaranteeing revenue, but then that also allows AWS to put more resources into leaning into your success.
Yeah, I've seen, and I know you can do 1 to 5 year EDPs. I've heard rumors that maybe some, or you could do longer than that, but I think the guidance is that. Also thresholds, right? Remember, I can't control my consumption, so you have to be spending a certain amount of money. And over the last couple of years, AWS has brought that threshold down, right? And the best way that I describe this and why it's important, because I've talked, saying like you, I've talked to a lot of other companies, and I saw it firsthand here, was this is like your power company. Everyone's got a utility bill at their house right now that probably doubled in the last couple months. But you've got that thing. And it's basically your PAR, your metered rate. I turn on the lights, it uses this much kilowatt hours, they charge me X number of dollars. Yeah, maybe there's some tiers of stuff, but generally just think of it as a flat. Now, the reality is what the EDP is designed to do is that if I knew I was going to spend $100 a month on my electricity, Amazon's saying, well, if you agree to spend $120 a month, in exchange, I will give you a X% discount. And usually at the base rates or these smaller EDPs, it's a pretty small discount, but think of the CFO or your true finance folks. The most expensive line item is people. That's the biggest asset investment in your company. For many of us, the second biggest line item is your cloud spend. So
Yeah.
even a 2%, 3%, like this could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can go hire 2 more engineers. That's significant. So even these small discounts, and what you're doing is you're giving Amazon a future committed spend, and the longer you agree to that, the bigger the discount in year 1, 2, 3. So if you do 5, you bumps up your first years. And the same thing is you're committing, I'm going to go spend this much. I'll grow a little bit from what I did the trailing 6 months last year. I'll commit to this year 1, year 2, year 3. They let you kind of play with the numbers a little bit. But really what you're doing is you're making a future guarantee that you'll spend this much money. In exchange, I'm now getting a discount on my services. And I do agree, enterprise support is expensive, or it could be, but I do agree. We've seen it. When stuff breaks, we have problems, like all hands on deck. For us, we have shared Slack channels. It also comes with a TAM. Our TAM's awesome. Like Kyle's in the business. He knows what so like in many ways, they're looking out for you. And Brett said it earlier. I mean, this is where you're meeting. If you don't already know, as a CAD, you should know your AE. You should know your SA. You should know your TAM. They also are interested in helping you, growing your business, bringing deals to you. That AE has a DM, a boss. They have peers. I want to go sell to them too, and all of their accounts. So like use these in your tactics, but at least on the financial side, that's really what an EDP is. And I think right now, the threshold is $500,000 a year, right?
Yep.
It was a little higher. It is now 500,000. So if you are already spending, what I saw at Lacework, we were already spending way more than the required thresholds. And I was like, well, why don't we go do this? Like, it seems like we can save some money. And, usually your CEO and your C-level, your CFO, they're always cautious to commit to more, to commit to longer. But what Barla said is very accurate. Is for us, I knew at our thresholds and what our spends were, that there's a secret behind the EDP. Based on how big your total contract value is for your EDP, it actually is connected to marketplace listing values. So because we didn't have an EDP, yes, we were in ISV Accelerate, yes, we were in APN Global Startup, and those bring your listing fees down. But the more the TCV of your total contract value of your EDP is actually how you reduce your marketplace listing fees. So while we're grinding co-sell, driving marketplace, that was the other way that I was selling to my CFO, is like, look at what we just did in year 1, year 2. If we bring this number down, we're actually saving money on the revenue listing fees. We're saving money on our expenses and our cost of goods sold. And I'll hand it to you, Brett. The other thing is there's some real tactics here in how you budget and what size of an EDP is, because, and I tell this to a lot of folks, when I commit to this spend, let's say it's a 3-year spend, let's say it's, I don't know, $1 million for the first year, 1.2 million for the second year. There's only 2 ways in which I can draw from that consumption. Hand it to you. What are the 2 ways that you draw from that consumption? And what strategy might you take?
Oh, yeah. Well, first I want to say I agree with the ES things. ES is the best. Ramsey is the best. So I'm a big fan of the ES for sure. Our team, we got a Slack channel.
Yes, being enterprise support.
Yeah, ES, I mean, like I said, we got a Slack channel set up. Our team's like, they communicate real time. It's a really nice model. But the consumption, man, I had so many thoughts in my head. Like, don't be afraid of it. I've had leaders tell me not to talk about it.
Sorry to take you. Like, if I have an EDP, right, that means I've agreed contractually to spend $1 million now till next year this time. In order to achieve that consumption, what do I have to do? AWS consumption
And marketplace spend.
Okay.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I was just trying to queue it up before I got stepped on. So,
so
you're just taking too dang long.
So we consume, we consume, right? And then we jump into the ISP flywheel too. Like I buy Palo, I buy Splunk, buy Salesforce through the AWS marketplace, because I have the same strategy. I want to hit, a bigger multi-million-dollar EDP commitment, because it reduces my marketplace fees. That's specifically what I'm doing. And I like going through the exercise because, you know, it builds rapport. Like, you know, it builds rapport with the sellers. Like, hey, I'm a card carrying EDP member myself. You know, I know what it means. I know how it can affect, you know, an organization. I've had more conversations with CFOs in the last 3-4 years because of the maturity of EDP plus the AWS marketplace and how you can burn those things down. Like we've won. I mean, I got $5 million in deals that we won this year specifically because of EDPs. If it wasn't there, we wouldn't have had leverage. If it wasn't there, we wouldn't have had the competitive differentiator that my one or two, maybe two competitors out in the marketplace, they don't know what the hell that means. They don't know how to benefit that. So you're right. Yes, consumption, right? I want to drive more. I want to build more VPCs. I want to eat up more data. I want customers that are sucking down 10 terabytes a day. I love it.
So I was going to say the same thing. So look, we're past June of last year. If I have that $1 million EDP, let's say my own service, I'm going to use about 800K. But guess what? You're right. I'm using A, B, and C vendor, and now instead of buying them, you know, through a partner's paper or through, you know, direct, right? Now I'm buying these same solutions through the marketplace. So now I buy $200,000 of that. I hit my $1 million commitment, right? Now, but how does that work? It's not dollar for dollar. What is it?
50 cents on the dollar, right? No, it's 100. No, it is 100% on the dollar.
Hold on. There's two different EDPs still out there today. There was March last year. They changed. And so before that, you got 50% of the annual recurring value. You got to draw down, burn down your EDP unlimited. Now it's 100% of the opportunity, but only up to 25% of your total EDP annually. So there's some benefits and detractors as a partner, right? And even how the value proposition of like, hey, I can help you burn down EDP. Well, if they already chewed up that 25%, $250,000, and I got a $300,000 deal, maybe I can't do anything for them at all. Or they haven't, and I get to have that beautiful benefit, right? And help accelerate the ISV flywheel to benefit their EDP. So there's two. You got to keep that in mind. There's two different ones when it goes to EDP.
Yeah, but can we mention something that yeah, you will burn down an EDP, but can we just call it what it is? Sometimes it's a useless thing to say to salespeople. So I started off as a AWS account manager back in the day before I moved to partners. And as I mentioned before, I had $19 million book of business from the year before that I had to grow to $30 million, right? So when talking about EDPs to AWS sales folks, they are good for you to have to lean into AWS, but sometimes I see that partners are relying too much on, oh, we're going to burn down your customer's EDP. Yeah, you will, but let's say, what are your price points? Oh, it costs $50,000 for our product. Oh, so you're saying $50,000 of a $1 million, $2 million EDP? Woohoo! Yeah, my customer, and it's only 25% of it. So if they're already past 25%, it doesn't matter. So don't rely only on, oh, we burned down EDP, which I have heard so many salespeople from my companies that I've worked at that have mentioned that, oh, we're really good. We're a great company for you to sell to your customer because we burned down their EDP through marketplace.
So
yeah,
I think this goes back
to not 100% of it.
This goes back to the segmenting too. Like in many ways too, through Laceworks evolution, I remember when I first started, we were so happy, excited, slapping hands for like $30,000-$40,000 deals. You're right. Like it's just where you are as a company. You're selling to little companies. You're still working out your product market fit. Like you're not doing multi-million deals. Or if you're just destined for the enterprise and you are selling multi-million-dollar deals, these are much longer sales cycles. You probably have little to no volume in ACE pipeline. So they're interesting. And also those enterprise reps, they don't know you. They don't know your solution from anywhere else. It's really hard. You know, they have 1-3 accounts maybe. It's really hard to kind of get on a co-sell call, earn value, trust, unless you've sold to one of their other accounts or you're well known. Like all that stuff takes time. But I am with you. I think it's important to understand the concept. I think in the co-sell, it's important for enabling your sales team to understand these concepts and understand the game that they're playing with their customers and speaking the Amazonian language with the Amazonian rep when you're talking about co-sell, because you could ask about EDP timing. Do they have one? Are you trying to sell them into one? If I sell my stuff through the marketplace, that might get them to the, you might find yourself aligned to the
That's the
seller.
strategic conversation,
There
right?
you go.
Right.
You might find aligned to them. And then because of that, now you're kind of partnering with the Amazon AE into that account. You're helping them in the smaller segments where you maybe startup where they don't have EDPs. That's how you make a friend. The other thing I was going to say about enablement and sales, the last thing I'll say is what's really important, and I've seen this several times here, we sell security. It is pretty often that whoever we're selling to, we get to the chief information security officer, or sometimes it's the CTO that owns security, or whatever it is. We get to someone and they go, I don't, like, Lacework's great, but I don't have a security budget. Like, I have no money, right? We already spent it. What's really important to educate your sellers about is asking about their cloud commitments. So not even the AWS co-sell, the customer, asking about cloud budgets, cloud commitments. And what I have found is, because we mentioned EDPs are drawn down from your own consumption, but also through marketplace purchases, we have found ourselves in a position that the only reason we found budget is because we understood the customer's committed spend, their EDP, not that we needed size or timing, but we were able to help them understand or bridge the gap that by procuring this through the marketplace, it actually drives down your consumption. So it helps you buffer your pad, your EDP space, give you a little comfort. Maybe you're not gonna grow 20% next year, especially in current macroeconomic conditions. And so by having your sellers engage with their prospects in that discussion, we have hit deals that they're like, thank goodness I could buy Lacework through the marketplace, because that hit my cloud budget and I had no more security budget. And all of this, like, play it back twice, listen to it slow. I've said this multiple times. You don't know. It doesn't apply to all deals. Some companies, they arrange their procurement and their finances differently. But the thing is, all of these are kind of weapons in your tool belt, and you need to try them all in different situations. And when you start selling 5, 10, 100,000 deals a quarter, it happens. Like, there's a percentage where this fits.
You hit the nail on the head with that, man. I was going to go right into that. Like, keep it in your toolbox, right? Use it when it's necessary. Understand what you're talking about, and use most of my examples, right? So, like, I had a deal like this year, $1.6 million.
Examples.
1.6 million or so, something like a couple $1 million. CISO wanted it, needed it, didn't have a budget. Hey, you got a cloud budget? Like, well, I don't know. Let me go look. Sure enough, they had an EDP and a cloud budget, and boom, there's a couple $1 million right there. And he's like, oh my God. And so
and because it's dollar for dollar now, or even if it was 50 cents on the dollar, most finances are afraid to sign that EDP and commit to that spend. And also, AWS is stretching you. Remember, it's like last trailing 6 months, 20%, 20+% the next. It's not like it's flat.
Yeah, but it's cumulative. It's cumulative. So in the first year, you might be at 100% of what your 6 month spend was.
You just wanted to.
But if you increase, I do like cumulative. But if in that year, the next 12 months of that first year, that you're still at your original 100%, you still take all of the partners that you bought through marketplace, and that can go in, and that could increase your 100% to 120 in the first year. And then the second year, you could be flat and not even have any increase. But because you brought 25% up from the marketplace spend, in 1 year to 2 years, you've already gone up by 20% already, because it's from day one to the last day of your EDP. It's not every year it has to go up. It's all cumulative. The other thing I wanted to add was something that I found out from my PDM for Redacted. And that was that if you get your competencies before you sign a EDP, your EDP discount will be larger. So if you haven't quite gotten those discounts yet, like if you haven't gotten to a competency, or you're about to get 3 more competencies and you sign your EDP before you get those competencies, you won't get the discount that comes with those competencies until your EDP is over. So that's why, they recommend, instead of doing like a full 5 year or 3 year, if you haven't got your competencies, do your competencies first, then
Yep.
sign an EDP or sign a shorter EDP. And then when you're done, you'll have your competencies and your discount will be bigger because you had more
Yep.
competencies. So
Yeah,
that's a big one to have
neat.
as well.
I
That's
mentioned
amazing, right?
term is another one too. Like the longer it is, the bigger the discounts are in year 1, year 2, and obviously, and then the total contract value is bigger too. So those are other little tactics. And I will say, having gone through this twice in the last 3 years here, they don't really like to redo, but it's hard to kind of guess at what your spend is, especially if you're in like kind of a hyper growth mode. However, I will say, after being on the go-to-market side, right, running our alliance partnership and doing all the co-sell and whatever, being involved in that process, it got me a lot closer to like my finance folks, my CFO, my head of procurement, and I became part of the team. And what I've realized is really important, and it's no fault to an engineer or my finance folks, they're not as close to where I am on the field, the sellers, our customer, the go-to-market side. And so just by me understanding these concepts, I can help connect the dots, but in many ways, I could inject how this works from our co-sell, from our AWS partnership. If we, as an example, if our committed spend was going to be 10 million, but like at 15 million, there was like those listing fee price breaks or something, I could probably explain that. I could explain, today, are we buying anything in the marketplace? No, but I know we use this ISV, this ISV, this ISV. Why aren't we? We could like do more. And then connecting it to your, what your CFO cares about, your cost, your cost of goods sold. So in many ways, we can agree to a bigger EDP. We have our spend, we have our ISV contracts, we get a bigger discount, and the discount's important because AWS is a big spend. So with that, our margins go up. And that's really advanced, but like if you can get yourself as a CAD involved in those conversations, in my case, I pushed this on my CFO. I had a brand new CFO. I was like, we got to go do this. And then I had to explain, sell, all that fun stuff. But like I knew what I wanted from it, but also I was able to save the company. Our first EDP, smaller, but I could say, hey, I saved the company $3 million just because I forced this into this. And I wasn't even calculating listing fees. It was just on our cost of goods sold, just our spend because of the discount.
Yeah, those listing fees are a really big deal to do an EDP. I think. I mean, it's one of the biggest reasons to do an EDP is those listing fees. I brought one of the last couple of companies I worked for. The second one, I got them onto Marketplace. I kicking and screaming they got onto Marketplace, but just because they didn't understand what was going on, they enjoyed it afterwards. But when they did get on Marketplace, they had that sticker shock of the initial 19%. Like, oh my gosh, 19% of our sale has to go to that. Well, let's do an EDP. Let's go join the global startup program. Let's do this. But it's a fast way, if you're not quite ISVA or advanced, to drop that really fast. All right, guys, we're coming up on time. I don't know if we want to close up in the next couple minutes.
No, we got.
I thought we were at 45 minutes.
No,
we got time. So anyhow, I was just
3 points.
Yeah,
I got 3 points. I can get in.
3 points. All right.
3 points. All right. Number one, great from a trusted friend of ours in the Marketplace team. Let us know on one of our internal calls that I think we were all part of. I think what's around, like you said, divisional placement, like know your audience when you're talking EDP. I think the stat was maybe 2.5% of all AWS customers actually have an EDP. It's not a lot.
crazy. I thought it was a lot more.
A lot of enterprise. The other thing I love to talk about, like you mentioned, right? If you lean in to talk about how you can help that AWS rep, support and push their customer towards an EDP, that goes a long way. Because then they're going to want your recruit, want your help and your knowledge to help drive that to more people in their book of business. So now you're thinking pipeline, and again, kind of this rapport building activity with that AWS rep. And even if let's say you're pushing the customer to buy through the marketplace, it actually supports that conversation because they will retroactively capture that ISV purchase towards their EDP in the future, even if it's signed afterwards. So it's a great kind of thing to realize. And I think the last one, and this is, again, driving, like how can we, work on consumption and things like that. Probably get in trouble for this. I don't care. Some of us ISV Accelerate partners get invited to interesting special spiffs and maybe.
You gotta watch out.
So a little birdie told me that if for me as an ISV, if we buy more of that to help burn more ISVs through the marketplace, like either Splunk or maybe Salesforce licensing, maybe they had a spiff that gets you 1.5 to 2.5% back in AWS credits by transacting.
Oh, that's not a
I call
secret.
them-
I just
I
wrote
call
about
those
this in,
rebates.
I just wrote an article today and I had George Marilakis quote the fact that they do that. So that's
Okay,
not a
good.
secret.
Ooh.
That it's releasing in the
So-
wild. That's a huge.
Yeah, go
like,
read my article.
That's another way to even just discounting your own, right? Leverage AWS to discount your own purchases. You're burning down ADP. You can get consumption credits back. You turn right back
You
around.
didn't
and
read my article, did you?
Put it in the bank. I didn't read your article. I didn't. What was the big word you were using? I was doing something with that big word. That's what I was.
Cumulative.
Cumulative. I was cumulatively, it's doing something. So
Cumulatively.
those are my 3
Yeah.
points. I just.
Those are, and
Still
then
be good ones.
again, like, you know, as I said, when you become a better partner, when you spend more money with AWS, when you're co-selling more deals, you're transacting more marketplace. Yes, there are secret programs, there are programs, you know, when AWS sees, oh, if I give them 1 or 2 more customers, here's the effect it has on their consumption. Like, they're no dummies. They're going to invest in you. They want to
Yeah.
bring you more deals. Even down to that rep level, why do I want to understand this? Why do I want to build that AWS AE into a champion? Because guess what? It's probably not their only account. And if they get us and they like, gosh, Lacework's so easy to work with, they understand it, they do a great job, their services, our customers are happy. Leadership principle number 1, customer obsession. You make the customer happy, that A is like, this is great, you guys are great. And I just tell them, awesome, tell your friends, tell your other customers, like, you got other accounts we can help out, right? Like, and that's, you know, like the true goal here for a lot of us. You know, I wish I could break this mindset. Brett and I'll steal his quote. AWS is not in Lacework's channel program, but we are in theirs. And so that means that I can't hold them accountable to what I want them to do, but I want access to their 1 million+ customers and all of this committed budget that they have with their customers. The way in which you do that is you have to be in their channel program. You got to do what they want you to do.
Yeah.
And so with that, I mean, just to continue, I said new year, new goals. What do they want you to do? What do these like annual programs, projects, not what the numbers are. Like I know what my metrics are. I think I've told everyone, know your metrics. I know exactly how many co-sell deals we did last year, how much marketplace revenue, how many deals, who I sold it to. As a CAD, you should know your numbers, get real comfortable with your data, right? But I said a couple of them. I'll start. Co-sell like ACE. How many ACE validated deals did I do last year? How much was registered? That's definitely one. The second one I look at is how many launched. Of the X that we opened, how many Y did we launch or close win together? And then I really care about that win rate. So we mentioned it on a previous episode. Last year, I was at under 30%, and this year I got to 34%. And that's a huge win. It meant me playing around with less deals, but putting better qualified leads in there, and our close rates went up. Both our products good, but like our close rate wins up. So imagine the power that has in co-sell, that I can go register a deal with AWS or talk to an AWS seller, say, look, last year, 1/3 of everything we put into, you know, ACE closed. You're not wasting your time talking to us. That's why you should give me 20 or 30 minutes of your time to talk about this opportunity.
It's important.
All right, so that's a metric, my goals. And then every year they want you to increase these. So whatever I did last year, guess what? Number goes up, but that's goals. But then how do you use that data to drive your future co-sell partnership, echoing that back? So
I
Brett,
got
I'll
a
go ahead.
I
Yeah,
got
Marlon, so I hand it to you.
I got a med just because I know Brett is dying to talk, so I'm going to cut in front of him.
But don't you need to go pee?
yeah,
I mean, you can go pee.
yeah,
see
I
you
do
doing
need to go
doing the
pee,
pee-pee
but,
dance from here. Like,
besides
just
that,
just do it. Just go pee.
No, my molars are floating, but yes, hold on. So, what you know, 2 years ago, when I was helping a partner go from 0 to hero, I hit 52 Monday morning stand-ups of different sales teams. Last year, I did 75 stand-ups with sales teams. Now, the metrics don't always equal out to the sales, but it's almost like advertising, right? So you want to make sure that as many people know about your product and what it does. to make sure, and there's also other things you need to do on the back end, right? You need to make sure you get your ISVA, you got competencies, your
Yeah, but
certifications.
do you really track that with your PDM? I do agree, but I don't know
I
if
do.
you track how many stand-ups or how many teams you got
Yes.
in front of and presented to? Okay, that's
Absolutely.
interesting.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's they like it because they can go back to their boss and say, the reason that I'm spending so much time is this partner is specifically getting in front of these sales teams, and I give them the list of all the people that attend, and each one, like, it's, you know, Bob Page's team this, and they have heard me speak for 15 minutes, this team. So it adds to the number of events. And they can, so I don't know if you guys know this, but AWS ISMs and PDMs have a certain number of things that their partners have to do that they are a part of. It's like how they're metriced. I have to have a partner stand up in front of this many teams. So the more you can add, and then they put their name to it, and actually gets recorded in the system of how many of those their partners have done. And it makes them more successful. So it is definitely
Nice.
a good thing to do as well.
What other metrics? Like, you've talked to a lot of PDMs on behalf of your, your clients now. What else are you hearing? What else do they want to measure? What's in that first partner plan or subsequent partner plans?
Yeah, the partner plans of how you're going to engage with sales teams, how you're going to handle processes in the background. What are you doing to make sure that your technical teams are building scoring to AWS? And what is the schedule of time and amount of time that you're giving per month to things like that? All of those are important to them because they're going to prioritize their time based off of what their bosses say they should do. So if they have a whole list of things that you're doing to get closer to AWS, then you're going to be put in front of the next guy who isn't doing that. And it's just going to be like whoever's bigger, whoever has the most. And your PDM, your ISM, your account manager has hundreds, maybe thousands of other clients that they're taking care of. And they're going to prioritize that time based off of what you have put into it. So all of that is written down, and it's not your PDM's decision. It's their boss's decision. And the only way they're going to know is by having that information in front of them. So they're not going to push you. If you're not happy to do the work and give them all of this information, they're not going to be like, hey, give it to me or else. They're just going to say, you know what, whatever, and go to the guy that is. And you're never going to know of all the work you could have gotten from AWS unless you put that in.
Yeah, so it's kind of what you get out of it, what you put into it. But Brad, what are some of the other metrics or things that you guys measure?
Fine, let him talk.
Well, I was going to see if my watery, flowy background was helping your situation at all. I decided to kind of change that. That might be a good outcome for you. So
thanks
to lean in on ACE a little bit. I'm all about being super transparent. Like share. Like, you may not even get visibility from ISMs without having hundreds of opportunities that are legit. Don't put a lead in there. Be stringent with it. I've seen a partner kind of screwed himself, put in, a couple thousand leads and only ended up with 100 launches. And so what a terrible ratio. And again, you gotta think about it. You got to think about those ratios. And here's one thing that you got to realize. ACE may as well be the holy grail. When you put it in there, it'll never come out. So you can't delete it. You're not going to be able to change your ratio. So be careful.
Is it that CADy partner?
I think so. No, but yeah. So be careful. I'd say just food for thought. It's cool to throw them in there. Don't get me wrong, but be cognitive of what you're doing. They look at that. So and partner salespeople are going to look at that too. If you have a crappy average deal size because you just did a bulk upload with a bunch of them, I mean, that could bite you in the ass. And they're going to look at you as a partner and be like, oh, they've got a horrible win ratio, so I don't want to spend my time with them. And what else? Oh, what's that going to do? Like you were saying.
I know firsthand. I've seen all the partner leaders' dashboards that they look at. Yeah, it's definitely there. Number, percentages. That's how they're evaluating you and picking the right partners to invest in, for sure.
I've had people ask me like, hey, can you give me an intro to this guy? He won't even return my phone calls. Like, well, why would he? Like, what did you put into
and why would I ruin my reputation by giving him to you if he doesn't want to talk to you in the first place? But when I was an ISM, there was a particular partner, I won't mention them, but there was a particular partner that decided they were going to start putting in 600 leads a week into the system. And these leads were, if someone came to their website and looked, it was a lead that they put into the system. And as someone, all those, all those leads comes to an ISM, and then at that time, the ISM had to approve each and every one. So here I am
Yeah.
approving 600 leads a week
Yeah.
from this one
Yeah.
partner, and it was copy paste, copy paste,
right
copy
next to
paste.
approve, there's that other button that says reject. Now they all get rejected. Actually, the
we just
AI
put
in
it,
the system now just
yeah,
like kicks all that stuff
yeah.
out.
We just put it in
Yeah.
mass reject, so we had them take all of their leads out. But
Yeah.
it's you can't.
So
You're not
Brett
getting
hit
anywhere.
on it. Like ACE is a co-sell mechanism. The entry point is a qualified opportunity. If AWS brings it to you, it's an Amazon originated opportunity or an AWS referral. It doesn't matter what stage it's in. Thank you, let's go. But
Yeah.
if you're putting something in the system, a PO, a partner originated opportunity, it has to be qualified. Now, the definition of qualified
All right,
could
guys,
be
I'm out
different,
because I gotta go.
but I
Bye.
believe the
Man. He had to pee bad, but at least I can return to the Amazon spheres. Okay, I'm back.
there we
now.
go.
So you're right. That was great. Great call out for AO versus PO. Keep going.
No, it's just that. So qualified deals, like whatever you feel your stage is qualified. For us, I just put it in simple terms. I know what qualified is in our sales pipeline, whatever stage it is. Anything before that, top of the funnel, we probably aren't going to sell it. We're still learning about the customer, what their pain is, challenges, who's who, do they have power, all that stuff. The deal with co-sales, and with ACE, is I want to register at ACE so that I learn who the AE is, so that I can get our sellers and their sellers engaged. But I'm not wasting anyone's time. I'm not fishing in this bucket here. I want it to be very succinct, so I know what we do and our partnership metrics. I know what's important. Drag is a huge thing for that. What we do, maybe they want to learn a little bit more about Lacework. Maybe we just move over to the opportunity. But it's really important to describe who you're talking to, where you are in the opportunity, what's the challenges that they have, current state, future state, all that fun stuff. That's what the AWS rep wants to hear. And as soon as they believe that you understand that customer, their problem, their people, their business, now is where the fun happens. They're validating validating your assumptions, sometimes telling you about who's who in the org, am I selling to the right people? You can actually find out a lot about that. It's not really super secret. They'll never, they're not allowed to tell me whether they have an EDP or not, when it is, but you can kind of coach questions around stuff. You can ask the customer that, they'll usually tell you.
They've got
Things like that. This is all
Yeah.
how it works. And also later, where I see it is early talk, drag them along in your opportunity. And then the end, once we go through the process where we're knife fighting against our competitors and we do a proof of concept and customers this stuff's great, I need to buy it. Now you're buying it direct, you're buying it through a partner, you're buying it through an MSP, you're buying it through Marketplace. Cool, love to take your money, but you know what? The AE is really interested in that. I kind of say they're blood in the water around sharks. So there's a few people there, like the Amazon rep. If it's Marketplace, the Amazon CA. Barlos mentioned George, who leads all the CA teams across North America. That's the customer advocates. They care about Marketplace. They also can help your customer understand. I don't know what the impact of our deal is to the customer's EDP, the timing, the goodness of it, but I can go tell the CA, hey, can you go talk to the customer? Can you go help them understand how this 100K deal affects their situation and their 50% drawdown or 100% drawdown? You don't need to tell me, but now you're working for me and you're helping me close and short circuit my deal. They want to buy it. There's a whole nother process we call the paper process to get from point A to point B. Well, that deal is closed. For big companies, that could be another 3 to 6 month sales campaign. So anything we can do to shorten that, huge value add. And Amazon's more than happy to help you. And there's resources there in that account team that are happy to help you. And that's what you go do.
The maturity and the leverage you get from all those instances. Again, even kind of back to ACE, right? That's your carrot. I don't know how many times I've had, starting in a new organization, maybe a new salesperson's never really worked with AWS before. They give, like you said earlier, you could kind of treat it like the channel, they're not your channel program. That I've had them come in and say, get me with every enterprise seller in my region right away. Like it doesn't quite work that way. I can't just go get you a meeting with all the sellers and there. You got to have a carrot. And ACE is how you deliver the carrot. And every one of my cadences is it's a big part of it, right? It's like let's lean in. I want to show the opportunity, be in the right type of partner in the right program. They're going to get incentivized to support you. And they give you G2 on the deal like you would never expect. It's amazing. Like, and not, like you said, they're not going to talk about, do they have an EDP? I can't really talk about that. But
correct.
I've had, again, they own the relationships across the entire C-suite. I've had a guy literally tell us, say, hey, all right, you're going to get in the room. It's going to be these three guys. The really loud guy, just cater, make him happy, tell him whatever he wants. He's not even a decision maker, but he's going to be there. And this other guy, he goes, if you can pull him to the side, and he goes, there's this coffee shop that he loves around the corner. Like, and like he'll go off site with you to grab because they make this really good blah 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 fizzy macchiato thing with caramels, butterscotch, and he loves butterscotch because he grew up as a kid. Like they give you insane intel into the approach the right way. But they don't do it with everybody. They do that with special partners that really are all in consumption and all in as a partner for AWS. And there's just so many cadences that you can run behind that. And I use that carrot to say, yeah, we're working on this, looking like it'd be great if we can win the deal together. Who are the rest of your accounts? Grab them right then. Like I jump right into it. I'm not afraid to ask as if you're the right partner that is leaning in, doing the right things. When you're talking EDP, they'll share the right things with you. And that's how you kind of start to lead in more of the AO versus PO conversation. Helping them originate for you. So
let me bring it back to, since we were talking about goals and all that, and I know we went on a co-sell tangent connecting it. Some of the other things to think about, like for sure, I track marketplace, my GSS, that's Amazon's term for gross software sales for the year. I look at our TCV, total contract. I look at how many transactions we're doing, how big the deal sizes are. All your marketplace numbers are really important. You should know those, but those are things that we track. AWS likes to call design wins. I still think of these as like my competencies, my co-builds, all the co-launches and all the good stuff that we do together, tracking those. Case studies or win wires. I won't get into win wires, but that's a good partner one too. But those are things that you want to track. Even, my team doesn't really there's no compensation tied to that, but I do ask them and we hold accountable working with our sales team and my alliances team to go do case studies and win wires, because when I'm talking to a seller, it's good to know, hey, I'm talking to Acme company. We just sold to Acme too. And I know exactly who we sold to, why, competitor, having those. And sometimes I'll send those to the AWS team or point them to the case study we did. They read those. They're all about the customer and understanding how you solve this problem and when, why, and how. Also, you need case studies, hint, hint, for all your competencies. So the earlier you start to get these and you write them in AWS language, the easier competencies get. So, all of the things there's several other metrics or trackers that you could do, but just thinking about the partner plan, thinking about your metrics, those are definitely some. I think Barla said on one. I do capture how much sales teams activity, but I never thought to actually count it or think about how many I should be doing. We just knew this. I mean, we didn't talk much about it. The fifth C I call as champions. And so, I mean, that's all the inputs to build a best friend, and even champions, I just call best friends, right? I need a whole bunch of best friends at AWS to think about us, think about the customer when they have a security or compliance challenge, think about us being great partners, co-selling easy, driving marketplace, understanding drag. I need them talking about Lacework and how great we are in meetings at AWS when we're not around, the definition of champions. How I get to one person, someone likes me, they introduce me to their boss, they introduce me to their peer, and that's where all the gifts start coming out of this mechanism. You're not doing this for free. You're trying to generate more revenue for your company, but I call these gifts, and these gifts come from doing the right things, meeting the right people, having those right people champion you across to other parts of the business. Thoughts, and I'll let you round this out because I think we're right around time.
Yeah. No, you're right. It is the Diamond Champion path, right? We wouldn't have done all the amazing things we had, getting the special invites to those co-build options, right? The special, the betas, from anywhere from a go-to-market perspective to a new build opportunity. If it wasn't for exactly that, I've got my champions for sure that I lean in on they get special treatment and all, and vice versa. And so when they have those,
Secret information,
Yeah.
early access. Yeah.
when they have exactly the early access, that's key. When they have those problems, they're like, all right, somebody brings them something on their team, how could we do this and that, and then they can go, oh, actually, I think I got a couple of partners that can actually help us with that. It helps them scale and helps them prove out different programs. Like I'm in I'd say 3 really interesting go-to-market activities with AWS right now that they want to prove it out, they want to make it meant, and they know that I can execute against those to make it, and so they can find all the broken parts, right? So we're really good for that. I love that when it comes there. Co-market, right? You make those friends, you get those champions, and I got to do like a great, like the ranch video series with Brian Orsi was really fun, and then Merritt Bear, we did, they got invited to the Security Live, AWS Security Live Twitch TV show, but they knew I was going to be creative, and of course we had a Miami Vice theme with a Ferrari, and we did awesome stuff, and it is you got those champions, and those you can't just go out alone, right? You're never going to, you're never going to impact the inside from the outside of AWS. You need somebody that is going to be your champion, really just cheerlead for you, because they know that you're committed and you're going to do it.
And I wouldn't just stop there. So now I will plug CADy Shack. So obviously we're doing this through CADy Shack, but like it's free to join. We've got 300 plus partners. So CADs of all different companies, SIs, ISVs. The other thing is I have met many influential people at AWS because of Brett, because of other CADy Shack members. So like, it's not just building champions at AWS. My peers know about other programs. My peers know people who are looking for more launch partners, or in many ways, CADy Shack has become, we've started to help AWS service teams, product owners, partner experience folks with our collective feedback about their services. How do I make ACE faster or easier? How do I make Marketplace an easier transaction? And they come to us. So obviously join, plug there, but also champions around your ecosystem get you into some of these programs, get you be aware. I think I gave everyone a hint. I'm not an ISV Accelerate yet, but I know this program exists. Cool. I'm here. It's there. What do I got to do to get there? Like by knowing that these things exist, by knowing that these programs exist, by knowing that the EDP exists, I might only be spending 100K right now, not 500K, but now when I get to that point, here's another thing that we can go do that can help the partnership, help our listing fee. So knowing about all this stuff is important, and that's really good to leverage your community, leverage CADy Shack, so join. So with that said,
so important.
We're right at time. Yep, right at time.
Power of the CADy Shack.
There you go.
Come to the CADy Shack. Awesome.
There you go.
Well,
So
thank you, Michael.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone. Awesome show. Finally got into the EDP. There's other stuff we could talk about. I won't even get into it, but I think we'll just keep this going. It's fun. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy giving back to the community. Thank you all. If you like this, subscribe to our videos, like this, share it with your friends. Join CADy Shack, CADYSHACK.com/join. Fill out the form. We'll get you added. Bye.
Thank you.